What's up, everybody? It's your boy Larry Howard, also known as Coach Proof, Director of Strength and Conditioning here at DePaul University, and we have another AAPCA podcast. Today we have Christian The Rock. Everybody knows him as Coach Rock. Not necessarily Rock Dwayne Johnson Rock, but
Yeah,
he's Rock the Coach Rock. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Van Buren, my guy. He works with combine athletes. He's had an opportunity. He's done a lot of stuff at Exos. Now he's working in his own sector, his own private performance company. Watching him grow and help several athletes perform their best on Combine Day and fulfill their dreams. Christian, my guy, certified strength and conditioning coach, masters, fully decorated. I feel privileged to be on the phone with you, my guy.
Oh man, look, it's the honor to talk to good people at all times, man. So I was excited when you reached out. I always find value in these kinds of conversations, man. So to be invited, it meant the world to me because it means that guys like yourself are recognizing it as well. And so when great people recognize certain things, man, it's humbling, but it's also an honor. So man, I appreciate you having me, man.
Hey man, the thing about the APCA, one of the I think the motto is iron sharpens iron. So for me, I always want to be around iron. I'm always looking to get sharper, and I think that a lot of where I have grown and where I'm at even today has because of building relationships, which we were just talking about. Getting in front of people, having conversations like this, being able to just chop it up, and then even talking shop, but just building relationships, being able to be in front of people, figuring out how they cook, you
Yeah,
know, figuring out how you cook, man. I oftentimes reference, and I know you probably see the Mamba mentality sign in the back. I Kobe's one of my favorites of all
yeah,
time, Kobe. And I remember he had a story. I think I heard this. I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard him. I guess it may have been an All Star game or sometime. I think he played with. He was going down there with Popovich. I think Popovich was the coach at the time, and I think he went to this All Star game. And they ain't really practicing because they don't really play an All Star game.
right.
And Tim Duncan was like, yeah, we ain't really practicing. We just having fun. And Cole was like, nah, man, nah, I want to go through real practice. I want to see what y'all doing.
Right, right, right,
So
right.
to me, I always took that as the man was always trying to see what everybody put in their sauce. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? So when you see a chef cooking, obviously we're in a space where I think you have a lot of collaborators. You have a lot of people that are willing to share what they put in their sauce. And it
Mm,
gives you the opportunity to be able to develop your own. So to
right.
me, I always consider it an honor to be able to find out what you put in your sauce, Coach Rock.
For sure. For sure. No, man, I appreciate it. I can't wait to get into it. I feel like we're gonna have some good stuff to talk about. So
Absolutely,
I'm
man.
excited.
So let's before we get into the talking how you're doing right now, and obviously we're about to enter into the thick of the busy time for you in combine. How did we get here? I always like to ask people, like, what's the backstory? Where were you before, and how did you get to this point where you're at now?
Yeah. Man, I always smile when I'm asked that question. Um, because I wake up some days and it's kind of crazy that I'm even here in this position because I didn't really see it that way. I know we've talked off air before, uh, but I mean, I was a former athlete, played Division I ball at Northwestern State University in Louisiana. And my initial idea when I went to school was I was going to be a physical therapist. And by the grace of God, now looking back on it, my first ever collegiate strength coach was Joey Garasio, who's now at Tulsa. And it's amazing to see what he's become. But I met him, and upon meeting him, I was like, man, I think I want to do that instead. And he started you know, kind of took me under his wing as a freshman, and I showed more and more interest in the training aspect, the preparation aspect of football players. And man, I remember one day he showed me a video of Coach Moffitt because he worked under Moffitt. And after seeing that video, I was sold. I didn't really know how I was going to do it, but I knew I want to be a strength coach. And so, yeah, I played all the way through my eligibility. I entered the draft in 2018, and I did my pre-draft and combine prep with Ryan Clark and Mo Wells.
That's
And that was
crazy.
almost like Yeah, that was almost
Mo
like
Wells.
the
Mo
I,
Wells. Shout out to Mo Wells, my frat brother. Yeah,
yeah,
I know
yeah, that was
Mo.
like a man, that was like the icing on the cake for me because it was like, okay, I saw what it looked like from the perspective of Coach Joey. And I had other strength coaches in there as well, like Michael Golden, who was at Arkansas Tech. But I saw that aspect of it. But when I got to shake hands with Mo and be around RC, it kind of, for me, it kind of like sold me on, man, if they can do it, man, I can do it. Because they were still really, really young guys doing it at a super high level. And I was just mesmerized by, man, we're in here training for the combine, but at the same time, I'm looking at Landon Collins, Tre'Davious White, Kentrell Bryce, Tracy Porter, and we're just all in here together. And then you look on the wall and it's like Shaq's jerseys on the wall. And I'm like, man, all this greatness in one spot. I think I want to do something like that. And so didn't get drafted. I had not finished my degree program. So I ended up coming back home to my hometown of Pineville, Louisiana. About 14,000 people here. It's small. I'm actually here right now. Um, and I was working at a supplement shop for like $7.25 an hour. And I was like, dude, I got to figure something out. And so Joey, Coach Joey was at Colorado State at the time as an assistant. And he just called me and was like, dude, what are you doing? And I'm like, man, this is what I have going on. He was like, man, come intern at Colorado State. Don't just sit around. You want to get your degree? Come intern at Colorado State with Ryan Davis. And so went up there. I didn't want to, but I went up there. I drove my car 17 hours, no place to stay for real. I just went. And I think I spent my first 2 or 3 nights in Fort Collins in a hotel. As a matter of fact, I got on Instagram and asked people to send me money uh, to stay in the hotel the first couple of days. And people did. Shout out to my Instagram followers. And yeah, man, I
Shout
kind of
out.
hit the ground rolling from there, man. There's a lot of really unique details in there. Um, I stayed in a space that didn't have any air conditioning for the time that I was there interning, and that was rough. I survived pretty much off of orange juice, Ritz crackers, and Skittles. My fellow interns at the time, I tell you,
In
I
the
went in,
trenches.
I was fresh off combine prep, man, and so I went in looking good, 210 pounds, all rocked up. When I left, man, I was like 185 pounds, and so yeah, I left there, ended up going back to Northwestern State where I played, worked under Jared Myatt while I was there, who's now in Indiana right now as an assistant. But he was also a Moffitt guy. So I played and worked with two Moffitt guys. And if you count Mo, I was coached by Mo too. Mo was a GA under Moffitt. So three Moffitt guys before I ever really got to the thicket of what I wanted to do. And so I was at Northwestern State as an intern, but I was leading and directing a ton of programs. Track and field is probably the most prominent at Northwestern. They're top 25 every year. And I'm doing all of this without a degree and without a certification. But I played there, so they're kind of, showing me some love. And I got thrown in the trenches. And within, the first year and a half, I realized, like, man, I might really be good at this. The first semester or so, I thought it was a fluke. These guys and girls are always really good at track. So them breaking records and hitting PRs like that, that's all them. But it kept happening consistently. And then we started seeing athletes that weren't really the people that you were looking out for in the sport starting to, get gold medals at conference, and they were going to nationals and things like that. And that's when I realized, okay, I might be pretty good at this. And so I was there for 2 years. Yeah, I was there for 2 years. And I decided in 2020, after I got my CSCS that December, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna try my hand at this private sector thing. I want to work with pros. I want to do combine. I think with the resume I've been able to develop in the collegiate setting, with the references I have, I should be able to easily transition in the private sector. And I did. I made the transition pretty easy, but thriving within the private sector was a whole different monster. I came over not knowing how to sell. It was the middle of COVID, so we weren't able to work.
Mhm.
And I was working for an upstart facility in just outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, D1 Ascension. Um, and I was 20, I was 24. Yeah, I was 24 years old, and I was the only one that really had any experience in the business. So people are kind of looking at me to figure this thing out. And man, I just decided during COVID, you know what? we can't work, but I need to continue to build my resume because I know where I want to be. I can't let the circumstances slow me down. So I just started, um, you know, asking athletes who were stuck in Baton Rouge due to COVID, like, hey, look, I'm gonna put a mask on. I have a key to the facility. If you guys want to train, man, come train at the facility for $25 a week. And I'll train you guys every day at the same time. And so it started out with 5 athletes or so. 5 became 10, 10 became 20, 20 became 25. I started videotaping it and putting it on Instagram. I started posting their workouts on Instagram for other athletes to do if they were following me. And once the restrictions kind of got lifted, it exploded. We went from that number to in a little under a year, 120 pro and elite college, high school athletes. And
Wow.
I kept that same momentum. I just kept on posting them, posting them, posting them. And after being there 2 years, 10 months, uh, I had the opportunity to interview for Florida Atlantic, LSU, which both were very sexy to me at the time because I kind of felt like, okay, you know, I've I've done what I need to do here. I want to elevate. And it was in the midst of those interviews that I got a phone call from Brent Calloway, who obviously is one of the GOATs in our game,
Shout
especially
out
with
to
all the,
Brent.
yeah,
Shout out to
Brent is
Brent.
now the head man with the Dolphins now.
Yeah,
But
he's at Miami now. I remember when he got that job. He actually was talking to my interns as he was getting that job. But
yeah,
Brent is an open book, man. He's definitely one of the guys you want to know.
man, that dude took me from 0 to 100. And just how I ended up getting that opportunity was crazy because I interviewed for Exos 8 different times and never got the job. And one of those times I remember being told I just need a little more experience, you're a little too young. But this time around, Brent called me personally. And I remember like kind of thinking he was gonna hit me up because he followed me on Instagram. And so I'm like, Brent Calloway followed me on Instagram. Like, what's this about? And I ended up getting a phone call from him. And in short, he's just like, man, I noticed a bunch of the people in your references. I know them personally, but also I'm trying to figure out how you're doing this work and you have a master's degree and you don't have a job with us yet. And I was like, oh man, things happen, I guess. And he said, yeah, I'll tell you what, give me 2 weeks, we'll figure something out. And within 2 weeks, he called me and was like, man, you still want to be a part of the team? And I'm like, absolutely. I get to work under the GOAT. Yeah, let's do it. And so that's how I ended up getting my job at Exos. And we hit the ground running. Within 2 weeks of me getting the job, I was leading all of the NFL uh, pro and elite programs. And I got there in October of 2022. So 2 months after that, we were in the thick of combine, and it kind of went from there. I stayed with that company almost 3 years, and then just decided, man, with the influence that I was able to create for myself by way of the platform that was Exos, I could do this thing on my own. And I broke away, started my own entity, uh, kind of operating in a way. I tell people I'm like a contracted sniper. For me, I partner with different players, partner with different companies, facilities, kind of filling in the gap for them. And that's kind of what I do now. Rock Official was my Instagram name for forever. So when I decided to break away, I'm like, I'm just gonna call it Rock Official because I'm Rock Official. So, and that's how this thing became what it is today. So that's the Cliff Notes
Wow.
version. But yeah,
That's something, man. It's interesting because I feel like every strength coach I've talked to, and this is to the other coaches that hear this, if you're in the trenches, you're doing something right.
yeah,
Because everybody's had a trenches story. I when I was
right,
down at man, when I was down at Gulf Coast, man, I remember we were this was during the transition, moving my
yeah,
family down. Uh, I remember one day in that gym just throwing up an air mattress.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Uh, when I took the job initially with Coach Woodfin, who that's how I actually met Buren Calloway. Shout out to Coach
yeah,
Woodfin. He's my goat, man, because he's
yeah.
him and Brent right here. They both.
They're those guys
I
for
mean,
real.
they're both two of a kind, man. But when I took that opportunity, I remember, shout out to my fraternity. They put me up in the house, and I had to. It didn't really have any furnishing, so you on an air mattress, basically,
Yeah,
just trying to what you got in your car, and you do what you can.
thug it out,
So,
man.
but
And it's
you
so
gotta
funny
thug it
because
out. But it's okay. I think there are some people that get discouraged in the thug it out process, and I think people need to understand like it does get better. It takes time.
mhm,
Um, there it's a season, and you're not the only one that's gone through it. Like if you see other people that are in some of these jobs or some of these opportunities that you're looking at and you're saying, wow, I would love to get there. There was a process,
right,
and understand that, that process sometimes is just uncomfortable.
absolutely,
Um, and understanding that discomfort will last for a season, but then you will get to a place where you'll look back on it and you'll be sharing trenches stories with other people and be like, man, you remember when man, that was crazy,
facts,
sleeping on the floor in the in the weight
facts.
room.
Man, it's so funny because thinking back to my Northwestern days, and people have heard this story time and time again, but I think that my time at Northwestern was far more difficult than when I was at Colorado State because um, I was actually working at a hotel, the graveyard shift per se, from 11 p.m. to like 7 a.m. every day. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, and Jared Myatt, he'll tell you we had our first NFL, I'm not NFL, we had our first group um, come in at 7:30 for football. And so there were times where, man, I would drive 15 minutes back into town with my red shirt on, my name tag, my slacks on. I'd run into the coach's locker room, fresh off of a shift from the hotel, and get to work. And man, I remember there were times because I mean, obviously I was still in school too, but a lot of times, man, I would just crawl under other coaches' desks within the athletic facility and take naps, and nobody really thought anything of it because they knew, man, the dude works at a hotel, overnight.
Yeah.
And I remember like telling my father one time on the phone, something to the same effect of what you said, like, man, I'm gonna continue to thug it out because I don't want to look back and regret that I didn't,
Right.
you know. Like
That part.
I felt empowered by the fact that I'm willing to go to my absolute end to see if I can make this work, and the only what if I have now in my life, which I think is because we try to eliminate what ifs. But I think the beautiful thing about perseverance is the only what if that I have now is the what if I didn't stick to it. And I think that
See,
that is by far more powerful and by far a better place to be rather than you know, what
what
if I
if I didn't
did
do it?
stick to right,
Yeah. I,
right.
I can I can relate, man. My only what if, to be honest, is I always think, what if I had gotten started sooner? Because I
Mm,
took a longer route. A lot of
yeah,
people, they come out of school, they know, oh, we're doing strength and conditioning, blah, blah, blah. I, I didn't see this represented when I was in school.
yeah,
I'm at my alma mater now, and I'm fortunate to be here. Thank God I'm back at DePaul University, where I
yeah,
went to school. But I'm the first director of strength and conditioning here. So I didn't see it, you
yeah,
know. In high school, you have, I mean, I'm talking about, back in the early 2000s and 90s, you just had coaches basically giving you bench squat deadlift and you running gases in the hallway because you ain't got no field.
right.
I mean, that's how it is in Chicago. So, you didn't really see a lot of high performance coaching and a lot of things that would have prepared you.
Right.
So I think that that's kind of what led me to it. But it was a process. I started off in the corporate sector. I got a chance to do sales, got a chance to work for put the suit and tie thing.
Hmm.
But I think that God works things out for a reason, because what it's done is just give me the ability to sell what I do
Right.
and get buy-in from athletes and communicate. So I guess that what if, but it's funny when you talk about the sleepless nights, because I remember when I was at Gulf Coast,
Hmm.
um, we would get back from games where we would go and play like Last Chance U, East Mississippi. That's
Right.
like, shoot, like, maybe 6 hours, 7 hour, 8 hour drive.
Hmm.
And you playing a night game, coming back, you ain't getting back till 3 o'clock in the morning. But you
Right.
see, I'm the director of strength and conditioning, so I had other teams. So that means that I got teams the next day while everybody else is going to sleep.
Right.
So, so I set up an air mattress at the gym. I'm like, and at the time, you know the South, so you understand where Ocean
Hmm.
Springs is in
Yeah.
relation to Perkinston and places like that.
That's
That's
a
a nice
long
little
way.
drive.
Uh-huh.
So I'm sitting there, staying with the fam, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna get on the road sleepy and then get back up only to turn around with 2 hours of sleep. Yeah, the trenches. Just go ahead,
Hmm.
set up a mattress and do what I got to
Right.
do. But
Right.
I get it. I get it. And for those who listen, like that's how it is sometimes. But it does get better. You just got to work
Hmm.
through it, and then
Absolutely.
not living with regret. But now that we're getting past all that, now you're in this space, um, combine prep. I've had a chance to talk to people at Exos. I've had a chance to talk to let my guy Les Spillman and the process of working with agents and building out this infrastructure to have a sustainable brand. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure because you have guys that trust their future to what you're able to do with them in this period of time while they're getting preparing for combine, while they're preparing for pro days. How has this build out looked for you? Obviously, you had an opportunity to do it at Exos. Now you're doing it on your own. But
Mhm.
how have you how to walk me through how you've transitioned to building the ecosystem to be able to do this? Because I know when you do something on your own, it's a little bit of a heavier lift.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, the first thing I did whenever I decided to break away was I just contacted everybody that I knew um, aided me external of the facility. So, for example, obviously, you work with enough athletes, you meet agents. You work with enough athletes, you might meet their physical therapist that isn't an Exos employee. You might meet their financial advisors. You might meet their massage therapist. So the first thing I did was I tried my best to protect the integrity of the company. Uh, so I really didn't contact anybody within the company for any help or guidance per se. What I did was is I just knew the personal relationships I had with the players, and I kind of leveraged those. Um, so like for example, how I really kickstarted what I have going on was I trained Ezekiel Elliott, and Ezekiel Elliott's physical therapist, Luke Miller, shout out to my dog, Luke Miller, is also Dak Prescott's personal physical therapist. And so I was actually training athletes in a grass field across the street from where I lived until I kind of, got my feet up under me and really figured out how I wanted to build this thing. And so, long story short, um, I reached out to Luke. Luke and Dak had a facility with enough weight room area for me to kind of create somewhat of I guess, a pillar for myself, a home base for myself. And then I just started growing from there, right? So I started contacting people's financial teams and letting them know, like, hey, if a guy needs a place to train, call me. Other professionals within the physical therapy space, the bodywork space, like, hey, look, I'm doing this thing on my own now. I do have somebody who's providing me a space to work. Uh, let's see what we can do to create an ecosystem for you guys. If there's any way that I can, you know, be of service to you guys, let me know. I'm more flexible in that regard. And through the relationships, that it's kind of how everything kind of grew for me. I tell people all the time, I'm not a big money guy whatsoever. I've been blessed to put myself in a position to grow in that way. But I believe that the most valuable thing in this world is human capital. So I just leveraged the relationships that I had. And from there, when it was time to really start creating programs that we could stamp the Rock Official logo on, it was really, really easy to pick up the phone. And just like I did when I first got started with my entity, ask for help. Like, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. Um, this is what I can do, but I need your help to do X, Y, and Z. How do we make that work? And over time, just through relationships and kind of, I guess, the integrity I carry myself with within the industry, people just jumped on board. And so I think for me, what really helped me create infrastructure is just being humble enough to look around and go, man, I know what I'm good at, but man, I'm not good at everything. So for those of you who believe in what I'm doing, would you want to take part of this and have ownership in something having to do with these programs? And it kind of just went from there.
Gotcha. That's that's something. I mean, I know because I've been an entrepreneur and I still am in so many respects that building out that framework is not easy.
Mhm.
Um, Walk me through what it looks like when an athlete comes to you.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously we've seen Exos's model. We've seen,
Mhm.
some of the things that, your D1s may offer. You see some of the things that, certain coaches may offer when it comes to how they prepare. I know what we would do here if we were preparing an athlete for a combine.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what your system, what your team looks like, what your process looks like, being that you are still in the process. I would say, if I'm correct, growing. You're still in the process of building. We're getting a chance, ladies and gentlemen, to see someone who is building an Exos, so to
Mhm.
speak, or a company that will be able to service athletes at a very, very high level. I'm curious as to how that build out looks for you.
Yeah. So I think my process is very similar in a lot of ways to what we were doing at an Exos because it was so intensive and so holistic. I fell in love with it. And like Joey G says, we're creators of nothing but borrowers of everything. So, being from Louisiana, I tell people all the time, I kind of, grab whatever spices I get along my journey to create my own gumbo performance. And so, when I get an athlete, obviously, as a,
I got a timeout, man. Y'all, I've lived on the coast. Bro, you killing me, man. Cause I got the gumbo down there, bro. I'm sorry I had to sidebar from this. But like y'all just don't know if you've never
yeah,
lived there. It's uncompar you can't compare it to anything else. I'm sorry, I
yeah,
know I'm sidebarring, but the fact that you brought up gumbo and you brought up like Louisiana and gumbo in the same sentence,
yeah,
and I was there and I was across the bridge from going to Nola, Slidell, and all the
yeah,
parts around, and Metairie and everywhere else I could go to get good gumbo. Is no comparison. But
bro.
I'm sorry. Continue.
Nah, no. Look,
I
I'm glad you,
digress.
stopped.
I'm just having flat. I had a flashback of like, man, I really don't have access to like gumbo that's good like that.
Facts,
It's
facts.
just,
Nah, man, it's
I'm
different. It's
sorry.
different. No, and look,
It's
I'm a
different, bro.
always,
It's different.
and I'm real big on always sprinkling it in because I'm Louisiana born, Louisiana
Mm-hmm.
bred, and when I die, I'll be Louisiana dead. I tell everybody that. But
I
nah,
digress, y'all. My apologies, but if you ain't been there, you just don't know. I'm just
right, you
gonna
got
leave
to
it at
pull
that.
up, pull up. But no, but yeah. So basically, when we get a guy in, there's an intake process, um, paperwork, obviously, liability waivers, things of that nature. But I like to always get them in touch with my nutritionist, dietitian, as well as chef. Let's sit down. Let's discuss those goals. Let's discuss where you've been, where you're going, where you should go, where you want to go. And then from there, I like to always funnel them to a network of physical therapists that I work with. Obviously, working with Luke Miller and the team over at Pro Sport Performance Therapy in Frisco. Uh, my first my first line of communication when it comes to integrating physical therapy is them because when it comes to a lot of what I do with my veterans and my pro athletes, or even like my off-season high school, college elite athletes, I mean, heck, we're right there. They're right there off the floor from where I'm at. So uh, obviously, they're the first line of communication that I have. If there's something that doesn't necessarily work out, like you know how it is, athletes might have their own relationships they're coming into the facility with. Because I have the flexibility to do so, well, then I make sure I contact their PT and say, hey, look, this is who they'll be working with during this period of time. What does your intake process look like? What kind of prerequisite testing are you doing at this point in time? That way I can match up what I'm doing in sports science with Vol, with the force plates, the force frame, the Nord board. That way we can communicate on a better level and speak similarly the same language, I would say, with each other through that process. And then from there, I think the one wrinkle that I add to my intake process that a lot of places don't add is that I also provide the athlete the infrastructure outside of the facility, right? Do you have a vehicle? Yes, no, maybe. Do I need to get you a vehicle? Right? If we need to do that, I have somebody. Housing, who's doing your housing? Are you looking for yourself? Your agent is doing it. If not, I have housing agents I can easily hook you up with. What do you like to do for fun? Chances are I know a large majority of the owners of any and every kind of venue in the area. Let me give you their contact. Let me let them know that you work with me. That way you're better taken care of. Do you need a driving service? Right? So I take care of all of that as well. So I basically provide the athlete after we do all of the, I guess you could say, the performance intake. I also try to give them a framework for their ecosystem while they're there with me in the Texas area, and then we rock and roll from there. And it's like a living organism, the network that I'm able to help them create because we all jump in a group text if we can, if the player's okay with that, and we're always communicating, you know. And so I think that's the one thing that kind of changed kind of how I positioned myself within the industry. I took it a little bit further than just the reps and the sets. And I said, okay, look, if we're all about developing the athlete holistically, then that means we have to develop the person, protect the person, safe keep the person. And what does that look like? You know, when they leave your building, what is it like for them on the outside? You know, are you providing them the framework to pretty much keep them within a safe bandwidth of operation outside of the building? You know, and so that's kind of my intake process. It's truly holistic to the person first, athlete second, really.
That's great. I mean, the fact that you you have factored in all aspects so that not only are they having a great athletic performance experience, they're having a great experience in general.
Hmm.
So that their time spent there, they're comfortable,
Right.
and obviously, if they're comfortable, it gives them the ability to focus,
Absolutely.
to be sharper. So that's great that you do that, and I know that building that out has been probably a huge process. But obviously, I see you have a lot of partners that you work with, and everybody is all about trying to help the athlete get the best experiences possible.
For sure.
That's great. I'm gonna say this now. Transition into the coaching piece. Um, what's your coaching philosophy? I think I know it because I'm just gonna say this. Those of y'all who don't know me, or if you do know me, Brent Calloway is his guy. Woodfin's my guy. Let's just say we're cut from very similar cloth when it
Mhm.
comes to how we approach things.
Mhm.
I'm pretty fair in saying that because I know I've had an opportunity to hop on a call with Calloway, and I've seen the impact that he's had on Coach Woodfin and how Woodfin has created his own coaching tree. So, but I want to hear from you.
Yeah.
What's your coaching philosophy, and how do you implement this with your athletes?
Yeah. So my coaching philosophy, like I said, it's a little bit of every experience that I've had within my journey. I just kind of made my own gumbo, like we said, and so I would say that it's a little aggressive in a lot of ways. Uh, but if you know me, that's kind of how I roll. So my philosophy is I want to create the most devastating athletes to be repeatedly devastating while under the most devastating conditions. And we do that by manipulating the energy system continuum to push athletes in a way that they can adapt and thrive in practice so that they can adapt and thrive in games or the field of play. So that's kind of how I approach it. Obviously, when we're training, we have to take into account stimulus and stress. So I think where I create that devastating like environment is through some of the uh, some of the mental things that we work. You know, I provide athletes with a lot of external stimulus by way of communication or the lack thereof. So I try to put them in the most hostile situations possible. Um, those who have trained with me know that, once I kind of give a direction on what we're trying to do, what we're trying to get accomplished, when we get into the thick of the training, there's no telling what might come out of my mouth. There's no telling what might not come out of my mouth. There's no telling, how I may look at you. Nonverbal cues go a long way with some athletes, and there's no telling what I may allow in the weight room or in the training surface. It is truly like warfare. I believe in taking people to the edge of the cliff and right before they fall off, yanking them back, maximizing recovery so that we can leverage that into our next training day. So that's pretty much my philosophy. And obviously, just like anything in the weight room or on the training floor or surface, every athlete is their own ecosystem. So I try to provide what is needed for the athlete to operate best in their own ecosystem. So, I have players that I've worked with, such as Malik Neighbors, who's a guy where all you have to do is have a conversation with the dude, and he gets it and he goes. Or Jihad Ward, he gets it and he goes. But then you have guys like a Kobe Bryant of the Atlanta Falcons, who he's a guy who enjoys, being pushed and maybe talked to a little bit differently or talked to more aggressively, right? So I try to make sure that whatever we're doing on the training floor, on the surface of training, it's its own tailored suit for that athlete. And I just try to make sure that while we're training, you feel like you're in living hell, right? Within the constraints of the training stimulus. So that's pretty much my philosophy.
Reminds me of Muhammad Ali's quote about training.
Yeah,
He hated every day of it, but it was a necessary process.
absolutely.
I would ask you. I know combine's coming up. Obviously, that's a huge draw for your business. What outside of combine season, where do you concentrate your efforts with Rock Official?
Yeah, so outside of combine season, I would say my efforts are, man, the bucket that gets filled probably to overflow when I'm not in combine is truly what I'm doing with NFL phase one and phase two of off season. I've been blessed to work with upwards of about 200, 250 NFL football players over the last 3.5 years or so. So that cup kind of overflows during that point in time. And so I tell people pretty often, for a lot of people within the private sector that do combine training, they'll tell you, man, our high time is the first quarter of the year. Then after that, we have to get busy. We got to get creative. For me, I tell people my high time is January through the back end of July for the most part, because the same level of energy I have to give to pre-draft is the same kind of energy I have to give to phase one and phase two of off season, because I see just as many, if not more, of those players. Um, so that's where most of my time is fixated. I would say that there are times throughout the day, in April through August, I do get some of my, professional softball players. I do see uh, some high school athletes. I do train some MLB guys here and there. When they come in, their schedule's a little bit different. But for the most part, I would say 98.99999% of my Rolodex are football players.
Gotcha.
Um, And so now I would much rather that percentage look a little bit different, because I do enjoy still training my track athletes, my baseball players, my softball players, my high school athletes. But it's one of those things, man, you build it, they'll come. And so what I've built, those are the athletes that typically knock on the door. So, hey, man, come one, come all, you show up, I'm going to train you. That's kind of where it is.
Do you have other coaches that are working under you right now?
No, so it's just me,
Wow,
which is
one
it's,
man
it's
show.
difficult. Yeah, it's difficult. Um,
Trust me, I know. You a D3
yeah,
coach and you the director of 23 sports.
it's
You-
rough.
yeah.
Yeah. So I just opened up the doors to um, my internship program.
Mhm.
Um, Developed a curriculum. That thing is just now going to get kicked off in January. So I will have some help. Um, you know, I mean I was the internship coordinator at Exos my last 2 years there. So have some experience there. And so I was like, you know what, man, can't do this thing alone. So I have opened up the doors for people to join my internship program through Rock Official. So I should have some help now, but it gets pretty rough. I mean, um, I sometimes spread myself thin, but quite honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way because I'm a super spiritual guy, and I just feel like that's my ministry. That's my altar. That's my daily sacrifice. So, man, it's hard, but man, I enjoy it. I enjoy being in the fight with those guys and girls every day. So,
Yeah. What advice would you give to coaches that, because here's the thing, you have a lot of coaches that will listen to this that have great staffs, that have, you know, football, you're at Division 3, you might have 5 coaches for one guy,
mm,
I mean, for one team,
yeah,
right? If you're at a Division 2, Division 1, maybe not group of 5, you know, when you start getting into the Division threes, you start getting NAIAs. Now you're dealing with one coach per 100 athletes, or 200 or 300.
Yeah.
What best practices would you say that have helped you when you're dealing with high volume and load of athletes to make sure that you're still delivering quality when it comes to programming and when it comes to coaching?
Yeah. I think there's several questions you have to ask yourself. The primary one, when it comes to interpersonal reflection on what you're trying to accomplish and why you want to accomplish it, is where do you want to be? That's number one. If you can't answer that question with a I want to be the best, then let's start asking ourselves more questions. If you answer that question, I want to be the best. I want to provide the best service. I want to be considered a top dog because of how I treat these people. If you can answer that question in that regard, then you just got to sink your teeth in and understand that it's your responsibility to continue to show up. If that's where you want to be, it's non-negotiable. You must obtain as well as lean into that responsibility. And I think that leads into my next three pillars. On the flip side, in order to sustain yourself, you have to recognize these three things. It's not their fault, it's not their responsibility, and it's none of their business. And what that means is it's not the athlete's fault that you're here. You chose to do this. It's not their responsibility to show up and serve them. They came to you. It's your responsibility to serve them. And then thirdly, it's none of their business. If they're able to um, look at you based on your energy level, based on your attention to detail, your ability to stay within the eye of the storm, like Joey Garaccio says, if they can look at you and tell that you're not locked in, if they can look at you and tell that you're not showing up with your best energy, if they can look at you and tell that you're doing everything but delivering a fantastic interpersonal and holistic service, then why do you have a job? You know? So my inspiration in all of that, even though it's a little rough around the edges, would be sink your teeth in and understand that no one is coming to save you. You've chosen a profession where you have been garnered the opportunity to save everybody else. So save Superman, Superwoman. That's kind of how I look at it.
I look at it, you know what is funny? Is you know how when you're on a flight, they tell you put it on your mask first? We're in a
Yep,
profession where you put on everyone else's mask first. Like that's
absolutely.
what it is. It's not about you. And every day you have to show up and remember it's not about you.
Absolutely.
At my very first internship, um, Coach Nick, he was phenomenal at University of Illinois Chicago. He said to me something that has stuck with me with every single athlete I work with. He said that these athletes have come to you with things that they've been working on their entire lives, especially if you're in college. And they may have, if you're talking the off season, maximum 6 months, 8 months to get better. That can literally change the trajectory of whatever it is that they're doing in that sport. You have to make sure that what you provide for them is something that's thoughtful, something that's intentional, something that's purpose driven, something that is methodical, and you have to take it serious.
Right.
And it has to be, and it can be about you, because at the end of the day, when they come to you with all of this work that they've done their whole life, they're counting on you to be able to lead and direct them in a way that can better what they've already built.
Right.
Because the thing is the reality. I mean, unless you're dealing with babies or you're dealing with youth athletes very young, you're not you're not always building. You're building upon what has already been established. Now, in some cases, you have to unlearn bad habits. Certainly, I've seen that in most cases when it comes to, certain movement patterns. Making sure that movement is quality. If they've been taught wrong, being able to reteach, re-educate, reprogram, what have you. But it is so important to just remember that they have dedicated considerable amount of time, hours, energy, resources, blood, sweat, and tears to whatever it is they're bringing to you.
Right.
So now you have to. Now your job is to be able to help them go from one level to the next physically, and be able to provide them the ability to not only do that, but be healthy enough to play whatever sport it is that they love.
Yeah,
So my mentality has always been, it's just not about you, you
at
know,
all, at
not
all.
about you.
And man, they're and I look at it from a I look at them as children at times. I see that child that they were when they first picked up the sport, and I think to myself, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah,
So if they're trusting you to help them increase or improve, I don't look at them as like, oh, this is so and so that plays for this college, this team. I look at them like that same little kid because they don't know, they are fully trusting you to lead them in the right direction, sometimes blindly. How dare we pin our issues on them when they're spending their time with us? How dare we not show up? I mean, I look at them like that same innocent child.
hmm
It's how could we let that kid down? A lot of people I work with are my peers. They're 3 to 5 years younger than me, or 2 to 5 years older than me. But I still look at them like they're kids. Like I just, yeah, I'm right there with you. It's not about us. You know,
absolutely, man.
we got to
You have
steward them
to,
correctly.
have to keep that going. I will tell you, I commend you for the ecosystem piece, because I can say, as a strength and conditioning coach in college with multiple sports, it's one thing to program. It's another thing to curate a experience for an athlete for their life,
Mm,
and taking all of those things in consideration.
right.
Even their social life, which you've told me, that's even a step further. Now that you've done this, now that you've established this, now that you've been working in this space, you have done some amazing things in this space. You've made some amazing connections. What is your vision? Like, where are you trying to go? Are you trying to establish a brand or a franchise that can be bought into? Are you trying to establish a corporation that will continue to grow, to scale? Are you looking to just continue to make the impact on a local level? Like, what are you trying to do?
Man, that question I've been asked so many times over the last probably year and a half, and I feel like it constantly changes because, like I said before we started talking, like to even be here, I knew I wanted to be here, but this was like for me, this was like the end goal. Like I wanted to, you know, have the opportunity to be a director. I got a chance to do that, 2 different times. I always wanted to work with pro athletes. I've been able to do that. I always wanted to work with NFL draft picks. I've been able to do that. First rounders did that. Like it's so I think for me now, uh, with having been able to check everything off of the strength and conditioning coach bucket list, I think for me now it's just trying to figure out how to best impact and reach back and help others. I texted a coach back in 2023 while I was still on staff at Exos that one day I felt like it was one day going to be incumbent upon me to grow myself as a personal brand in such a way that I could prepare a place for these kinds of conversations and for strength and conditioning coaches to find their own autonomy and independence to grow. Because as we all know, we're some of the most brilliant people on the face of the earth, in my opinion. We all have multiple degrees and multiple certifications. And I feel like that needs to be expanded upon. And it's hard to do that in our industry without kind of throwing yourself into the den of lions. So I wanted to be able to kind of throw myself out there and, you know, kind of like I've done for athletes, create an ecosystem for coaches to do the same, whether that be ancillary to what they're already doing or to be able to step out and do what I did just on an easier level, a smoother level. So, um, man, I think honestly, I feel like that's the best way to answer your question. I think it's organically kind of happening um, with the internship program opening up. I could see that potentially being something that sustains itself, but also too through the internship program, maybe have other professionals come in and help me out and pick up groups and continue to maximize what we're doing on the elite in the elite and pro space. And you grow that thing big enough where now they have jobs and they have their own groups and it becomes one of those things where it's a staff thing, right? Where, locally there's a staff, and then that staff is able to pick up and do things outside of the borders of Texas, and before you know it, they have staffs, and so I think that it's I don't know if that was necessarily the vision, but I think it's kind of organically happening, and it's all predicated upon my desire to want to help others and prepare a place for coaches and athletes alike to do things differently, maintain their own autonomy, so that they can serve many more people external of just where their logo would confine them to. I think that's kind of my goal.
Gotcha. I have a couple more questions for you. We're obviously on the African American Performance Coaches Association podcast. How do you see what the work that you're doing in this space sewing into our community?
Uh, Man, so I think the lowest hanging fruit to expound upon would be when you look at the guys and girls that we're working with, the predominance of them look like me and you.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, I didn't really see that representation, when I was an athlete. And I remember one of the greatest inspirations to do this the way I'm doing it now came from a conversation that I had from a really, really good strength coach by the name of Michael Golden. And love that dude to death. And he kept it so real with me. And he told no lies, but it inspired me to push through it. He looked at me and he said, Rock, if you really want to do this, just understand that there aren't many that look like you, and they're going to make it hard. They're going to make it extremely tough to climb the ladder as fast as you're telling me you want to do it. But it's key that you stick to it, because people like you that come from where you come from are highly valuable. And when you break through the door, you'll be able to change this thing. And that was my white tree coach telling me
Mm.
that,
Wow.
and it was powerful. It was powerful. And I think that you know, meeting Mo Wells and Ryan Clark, that was when I was like, dude, I have to do this. And so um, I feel as though through that inspiration and what I've been able to grow, it's been very, very valuable for our community, because athletes are able to see this thing become what it's become. I can't tell you how many former athletes I've worked with that have called me and said, hey, man, how do I do what you're doing? You know,
Mm.
or how many call me and say, hey, man, look, I want to learn from you. Is there a way that I can come in and spend time with you guys? And those doors typically aren't open, but because you have one of us in the room, it's non-negotiable. You can come in because I'm in the door. You can sit in
Mm.
on these conversations because I'm having the conversation, right? And it's showing our people that there's always another way. And sometimes if you want to stick it to the man, for lack of better words, although I do kind of think that way, uh, sometimes you don't need to shun the man, just get next to the man,
Mm.
however that looks. I tell people this all the time. If you ever wanna take the throne, you just got to sit next to it or sit behind it.
Mm.
But you got to get within proximity. And I think a lot of times in our culture, in a lot of different avenues of profession uh, and career, there's certain careers that we feel as people have suppressed us, some of which have killed us. And we look for change, we look for reform, but we don't push our kids to aspire for those jobs, because either they're hard or those jobs have suppressed us before. So why even take part in it? Well, take
Mm.
part in it because once we start getting those seats, that's the change. And so I think being able to operate in the space the way that I've been operating, and I think that that's the value. It's showing folks that, number one, it can be done, but number two, if we all start doing it, we all have a seat at the table. And we're now able to impact even deeper, because the people that we're trying to impact, most of them look like us. And when you look at what sports culture has become, from the types of music these athletes want to listen to in the weight room, the swag that they carry on the surfaces of play, both in women and male sports, when you look at that culture, a lot of it is Black culture.
Mm.
I feel like we should be a part of that. I feel like we should play ourselves in position to be the, for lack of it, well, not lack, but for very strong words, the chief cornerstone of that part of the industry. And so that's where I think the value comes from. Um, I mean, look, I'm one of you, and
Yeah.
you're me as well. You know, let's
Honestly, I
um,
always say, and this is kind of going back to what I said before, I want to be what I didn't see.
yeah,
You know, there was no strength coach here. I didn't know that this was even a profession. You know, I think that when you're able to represent what you didn't see, it gives someone else a chance to see what you didn't see, and they can make decisions even earlier than what I would have made,
right.
and maybe have skipped steps,
Hmm.
found a way to get to their destination, and maybe even go further than what I would even go, just because of the fact that they see now someone that looks
Right,
like them.
right.
I think that representation is important. Um, so obviously, you want to be what you can't see. So
Absolutely.
that was my first question for you, and then my final question for you, and this is something that I know a lot of people are going to wonder: benefits of being team sports versus private sector. This is a
Yeah,
constant thing that you see with a lot of coaches that come out of programs, internships. You know, some say, yeah, I think I might want to go private sector, or I think I'm going to go in team sports. Each one has its pros and cons. You
hmm,
know, um, you work in the private sector, so but you've obviously had some experience, in team sports too.
hmm.
I want to hear from you.
Yeah. So first thing I would say is choose your hard because they're both going to be difficult in their own ways. Uh, so what I have been able to figure out from having been on both sides, as well as kind of dabbled in both sides, even within the private sector, is that one, what do you prioritize? If you prioritize the opportunity to have your own autonomy as it pertains to your schedule and how you market and brand yourself, then private sector all day. If you are looking to expedite your financial growth or your financial ceiling early on, private sector, because for the most part, you have autonomy over that. You can sell how you want to sell, market how you want to market, price point how you want to price point, all of those things. You can do it a whole heck of a lot earlier. And a lot of times, because athletes don't know what they don't know, you could also utilize sales tactics to get them through the door. People don't want to have that conversation, but that's just what it is. Now, long term, uh, if you want to play the long game and you're a guy that's like, man, how close can I get to $1 million? Well, the path of least resistance from um, I guess, a grunt work perspective would be the college setting because you have the opportunity, or the team setting because you have the opportunity to leverage relationships and guys come and go. Guys reach back and grab guys, and before you know it, you're at a Power Five making $500,000 a doggone year, right? To make $500,000 in the private sector is very, very difficult, super difficult, because there's a sales component.
Hmm.
Whereas in the team setting, it's not really that, especially if you're talking about colleges. I mean, it's all state funded. So, you know, it's a lot easier that way. So it just comes down to choosing your heart and determining what it is you prioritize. I was a guy that, you know, I feel like the waiting process of team sports was something that didn't really interest me. I kind of got turned off from the idea of it doesn't really matter how proficient I am at what I do. If so and so doesn't know me very well, then I'm going to have to be kind of put on the end of the bench. I didn't really like that. But I also kind of took on the idea of, well, if I'm going to have to wait for it, I might as well make a decent living for myself waiting. So I'm going to go private sector. And if you care about me enough or like me enough, you'll call and you'll ask. And I was told that that doesn't really work early on in my career, which I've proven that that's not really the truth. You know, if you do good work and if you do good work and you treat people the correct way, people always reach out and call. They'll always keep you in mind. So that was kind of why I jumped over to private sector. I knew I wanted to see what it was like to train a higher volume of pro athletes and get into the combine space. But I also knew that if I did good enough work with that level of athlete on this side, A, while I was playing the waiting game of potentially getting a big team job, I'd be able to make a decent living for myself. But B, if I never get that team opportunity, well, I'd still have my autonomy and I'd still be able to take the vacations I want when I want them. I'd be able to travel and things of that nature. Um, so I would say those are the pros and cons. On the team side, you're at the mercy of that team schedule and boss man. As strength coaches, we're only the bosses of our staff. But when it comes to the team itself, that head coach is the boss of you. And if you're doing more of an Olympic style way of training, you answer to several bosses. So one boss might say, "Hey, you're off this weekend," but the other boss might say, "Cool, we got a game up the road. I need you there." So it's all about choosing your heart, really. What do you prioritize?
What would it take for you to go back to actually go to a team setting? If that would be something that would that be something you would entertain if it was the right
Absolutely.
opportunity?
Absolutely. And I think that's it. Like, because I've been on the private side so long and I look at everything like a business, and as you know, college sports is becoming a business as well. It would just have to make sense. I'm not a big title guy at all, never have been. Just like I've never really been a big money guy per se. I just always wanted to be okay. I never wanted to go back to having to work at the hotel and sleep behind the desk. You know, I just always
just keep
wanted
me
to.
out the trenches. I'll be good.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But obviously, as you know, you get accustomed to living a certain way and being able to provide for yourself and your family a certain way. So I want to be able to sustain that. Um, so it would just have to make sense. I enjoy coaching in general, so I've never been turned off from the dynamic of coaching either way. Whether it's coaching a team or coaching multiple disciplines of athletes, that never really turned me off or you know turned me on to a job. Rather, I want to be able to come in, do it at a high level with high level um, individuals, and I want to be okay. So when it comes to the team setting, if I can jump into a role that allows me to financially be okay and take care of myself and my family the same way that I've been able to do so, let's have the conversation and let's go from there. Um, that's really the only barrier I would say to
Mhm.
making the transition. I've done it all, seen it all. So I feel like I can do it all. Just if I can be okay and make sure my family's okay in the process, man, let's do it.
Gotcha. Well, Rock, appreciate you being on this podcast with me, man. Appreciate talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. Good luck this next combine season. I know it's a lot. I mean, you're about to step into a very busy time of the year where I know you're going to be running back and forth and doing quite a few things. Are you going to be in Indy for combine?
Yeah. So we'll be up in Indy. We'll
Tap in with me.
bring
You know I'm here.
yeah, facts.
Yeah,
Facts.
tap
I
in
have
with
to
me.
hit you up, man.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, listen, I appreciate you chopping it up on the APCA podcast. Uh, for those who are looking to find you, how do you like to be communicated with, and how can they find you?
Yeah. So I'm on pretty much every social media platform. I mean, so Rock Official. If you just type in Rock Official, I'll pop up on every social media platform. I mean, I think my Instagram is like _@ Rock Official. I think my Threads is the same. Uh, my Twitter or X now is actually Rock Official __. But if you type in Rock Official, I'll pop up. Or if you just Google, Christian Rock Van Buren or Christian Van Buren, you can find me on literally everything. Just hit me up there. My emails and things will be attached there. So, yeah, wherever, however, if you just search it, you'll find it. And I'm pretty much an open book. It's an open door policy with me. Just hit me up and I'll chat back. So
Appreciate you, man. Hey, enjoy the holidays. Again, thank you so much for hopping on. And for those of you guys who are listening, thank you so much for hopping on the APCA podcast. I'm your host, Larry Howard, and we are out. Thanks again, man. Appreciate you.
appreciate it, brother.
Peace out. All right. What's up? It's your boy, Larry Howard, Coach Proof, and I want to remind everybody that the African American Performance Coaches Association, AAPCA, is hosting its fourth annual AAPCA conference. This will be taking place Saturday, February 21st, 2026, at the Atlanta Marriott Northwest at Galleria in Atlanta, Georgia. This conference brings together top performance coaches, sports scientists, and strength and conditioning professionals from across the country for a full day of education, connection, and professional growth. You can expect high performance workshops, keynote speakers, leadership development, and vendor exhibits from some of the top brands in training and recovery. If you are serious about developing as a coach and expanding your network, this is an event you do not want to miss. You want to make sure that this is on your calendar. Again, Saturday, February 21st, 2026. Make sure you be there.